In B2B Magazine, there's a report that ranked the top concerns of B2B marketers, and these aren't any surprise, and I have two points to make about this as I go through it. So obviously, number one, social media, no surprise. Content marketing, lead quality, segmentation and messaging, marketing automation. And what's interesting about this combination is that I didn't see the customer mentioned in there. And it is our concern, right? But right now, we're so focused on all these things that have so many unknowns and that are so complicated and that are going to unwrap that sometimes we can lose sight of really our number one concern is our customer, without a doubt. And the other thing I wanted to point out is that we're actually covering a lot of these areas in the presentations today. So Brian and Nicholas Walter are going to cover social media. David Blaza this afternoon and his panel are going to cover content marketing. I'm going to touch on lead quality and messaging, and then Kathy kind of touched on big data and some of the systems that are supporting automation. And also at the OMS Summit, the Online Marketing Summit, they're covering a lot of this. So I believe all of our passes get us into the exhibit hall, so go in there and give the software companies a hell. Ask them a lot of questions. So there are a lot of definitions about marketing. The American Marketing Association has some, marketing gurus have other definitions, consulting companies, professors, books. I wanted to boil it down to its essence, and I think this really captures it. Marketing is one of the oldest professions, but it's really about supporting an exchange in the marketplace. It can be products and services, it can be in kind, it can be a situation like this, which is really informational, but it's about supporting an exchange and then helping to shape that experience. And that experience is so important, and if we can focus on this a lot more than our day-to-day, I think it's a good guidepost for us. And companies that, the classic current examples of companies that do it are Virgin Airlines, who took an airline industry, and said, we know we can change that experience, and they have. And then there's Apple that sees an experience that customers don't even know they want yet, and they build it out. So they're inspiring, and I think that keeps our inspiration level when we think this way and when we focus on what it is that we really want to do. Easier said than done. So as we're building out new products and or building out new programs or campaigns, start at the point of answering what experience you want to invoke. Again, it's difficult to keep on task and to think about these things in our day-to-day lives. Let the engineer's wants and needs act as your compass. Let your customers' wants and needs act as your compass. And I know people have different clientele out here. But I think this will be a good guide for us to do even better work in the future. And again, we need to, and I suffer from this too, get out of the day-to-day mindset and try to think about the experience and again, think about the exchange. And it's hard to do because people who work in small companies or startups, a marketer may be doing everything. Or in a larger company, you may be siloed within a vehicle or a channel or a brand or a product, and it's hard to collectively, as a group, at a larger company sometimes to say, okay, we want to change this experience and we want to think about the exchange this way. So, New World Marketing. These won't be a surprise either. Communication is one way. Communication is more interactive and two ways. And I think companies who've been doing two-way communication with their customers have been doing better marketing anyways. I just think that companies can't get away with just broadcasting anymore. Engineers are sought out. We're buying lists, that type of thing. Engineers are coming to us through search, through recommendations. It's happening at a greater and greater pace. You provide little added value. You provide value. So we have to earn our relationships. We can't just expect people to buy without providing extra value. You rarely seek to educate and create fun, and I think this is really important for the engineering community. And I think you're seeking to educate and create more fun. So Brian mentioned our Day in the Life of a Customer study, and we went out over the last, I think it was about 2 months ago, we went and interviewed 100 engineers collectively at UBM Electronics. And the stuff that I'm going to show you now, what engineers want, and then the subsequent slide, what engineers need, is pretty much from that study. And what engineers want is to be respected. And I'm hoping this tracks to our engineers from the last. But I think it was interesting. I heard some of these things come out, so I was pleased. They want to be respected in their industry and within their companies. They want tighter collaboration with suppliers and distributors, and I think from the panel before, I think they want it to be real, a real connection. They want to have fun, and I love this because one of our brand directors, Patrick Manion, always talks about this. He runs EDN and embedded and test and measurement world, and some other things probably coming down the pike. And he always talks about how engineering to these engineers is a hobby, and they want to have fun. They want time for discovery, and they want trusted information. So what do they need? We call these the essentials. Supplier information, news and analysis, product data, new technology, education and training, and more and more peer-to-peer involvement. And so what we're doing at UBM Electronics, as should all of us, is asking the questions, how do we provide what engineers want and what engineers need? So here's the kind of gratuitous UBM slide, but UBM Electronics slide. I wanted to just show some of our sites. And there's growth here, especially Embedded launched last month. There's about 73,000 unique web users last month. And what we're seeing is people are obviously interacting with our web pages, but here's some of the other kind of big items that when we looked at the data to prepare for this presentation, the webinar attendees is skyrocketing. So is our downloads of technical papers and also participation in educational courses. And within these areas, they're posting a lot of comments. So we're noticing these trends, and they probably have importance for some of the activity that you're doing. So we also took a look at, this is actually on our sites, what marketers are buying on our site, and they're buying a lot of awareness type vehicles. So banners, display ads, things like that. And then also some lead gen, it's 18% targeted and 1% engagement. But if you kind of look at what engineers are doing on our site, it's a little bit flipped. So I'm not saying everyone's doing the wrong thing. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is consider some of the options that you haven't before. And that would be technical papers and getting involved in webinars or getting involved in sponsoring educational courses and training, either online or off, whether it's with our company or other companies. Because I think there's just a little bit, the trends are changing here and there. Be mindful of the mix. So what I am thinking is there's this marketing continuum. And there's certain things we can put into play fairly easily early on. And there's things that we want to build towards or keep building. And engineers are tending to become more engaged and more interacting in different types of content, not just maybe a one-off article that they've searched on, say, EE Times or EDN or whatever on our site. So I kind of think of level one as that reach out level, where you're setting up some display ads, you're setting up, maybe some rich media ads, and you're doing that to create awareness. And let's say you're doing that on one of our sites. I also think you can be doing a lot more surveys. And actually, I should have asked the engineers about that because it's such a great way to start interacting with engineers. And I think kind of what would be great is that next level. We are getting involved in targeted sponsorships or newsletters or even some contextual advertising on our site. Engineers are really interested in getting more and more educated. They're lifetime learners. Consider tech paid papers, webinars, online radio shows, online courses. And I just worked with my colleagues on a webinar for datasheets.com, and it was turnkey. I mean, it was fabulous. It was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be, and it was my first time doing that at UBM Electronics, so it worked out really well. And kind of that fourth building block is to inspire and connect. And that would be kind of those live events or even community sites, whether they're on our site or your own or custom stuff. So definitely consider these as well. So here are a few key practices. I want these to kind of map to some of these engineer wants and needs that I've been talking about. Listen to engineers and learn. So if you're taking online surveys, if you're conducting online surveys, they're so cheap and easy to do these days. There's a lot of software out there. If you need help, there's companies that can help with that, and also our company can help with that. And it's important to gather this information and learn, but then the hard part is putting those learnings into play and putting them into action. And a lot of times, unfortunately, people get too busy, and that's the part that gets skipped. But I think this helps prepare us for the future and do better marketing. I love this. Cut the jargon. I had a colleague that said, cut the bullshit, and I totally wanted to put that in there. But I couldn't quite do it. There's this great article from Forbes from a couple months ago about the top overused business words. And I challenge everyone to take a look at the communication pieces that are going out, whether it's your website, whether it's your campaigns, whether the product specs, everything. I worked on the embedded.com launch for UBM Electronics, and I did the jargon challenge, and this is like hindsight is 2020, but I kind of checked everything out. And my emails were fine, my banners were fine, the one sheets were fine, and then I kind of took a look at that press release. And yeah, there was some jargon in there. And the problem is that goes to editors, and then that gets translated to engineers. And so, do the jargon test, check it out, make sure there's just not a lot of malarkey, baloney, because engineers do not like it, and they don't trust you if they see stuff like that in there. Partner with like minds. I wanted to just put UBM Electronics in here, but there's some fantastic organizations, universities, and other companies that you can partner with to kind of leverage up and elevate the work that you're doing, or even look for new sources of reaching your audience. Look for aggregators like datasheets.com. There's a number of aggregators out there. If you're not involved with some of these companies, Datasheets blows these other companies out of the water, by the way. But you should actually get involved with all of them because you're leaving revenue on the table, and it's not that difficult to set up. So if anyone has any questions about that, I can hook you up with one of my colleagues. Understand the new point of sale. I think this is a key slide, and I think that the engineers that were on the last panel talked to this. And that is, there's so much information at everyone's fingertips that the point of sale is maybe not with your salesperson or is not with your catalog or your online website. The decision may have already been made, either because they've Googled something, because there's ratings and reviews, or they've talked to a colleague, or they've actually searched and seen some sort of video on YouTube. And in our personal lives, we see that all the time. You may see a rating or review on a restaurant and have already decided to kind of go there before you even set up your reservation. So there is a new point of sale, and it's earlier than everyone thinks. Explore video. I think this is key. Video is proliferating. I think what makes a good video in our space is what the engineers were talking about. New product videos, fundamentals that have staying power. So it's not something that's gonna, you're not gonna create a video and it's a video that's gonna not be relevant in a month. So it needs to be kind of like a 101 on something, or it needs to be about a new product or service. And also about your company. Really quickly, I think one of the engineers talked about, I don't even know what that company is about. And I did a quick dirty video for the EDN.com relaunch, and it's a lot easier than people realize. The technology is there to create your own edits. I don't think you have to have a Hollywood production to do video. It can be semi-professional. There are a lot of companies out here that can help you, and if you want to know who any of those are, there's a ton in this area, and just come ask me. I know that NI has done a lot of kind of fundamental videos, so definitely check out their site and check out those videos for ideas. Utilize mobile more in the future, and I mean this less from getting your website mobile optimized or creating apps, but also doing some testing, some messaging texting. And this is a difficult one depending on the business, but it can be in the form of updates or reminders or alerts. And the companies that are doing this really well or doing really unique things are actually in the small business space, and they're using companies like Demandforce to send out texting, and I think there's a lot to learn from the small business space with this. And an example would be like a doctor's office that says, you need to have an appointment in a year, it's your annual checkup kind of thing. Note what works, and I'm going to tell you, this is what we're seeing is working on our site. Technical papers on the UBM electronic sites are driving the most engagement. Webinars are kind of the most intimate. And when someone asked the question, like, what should we put in our webinars? These are the things that we're seeing are tracking really well. They're kind of the how-tos, the top tips, the fundamentals, and like the hot products. Like, what do the other engineers like? They'll probably like this. And then the last thing is new product newsletters. Even though they're an email format, they're definitely of interest because engineers want to know what's new. Build a community. So there's a couple choices here. You can leverage media communities, or you can actually start a LinkedIn group, or you can build a custom site. And I think Kathleen is going to talk about communities for one of our courses, so she'll probably go into that a little more. Provide education and training, because engineers want it. You can either do it yourself and do it for your top clients, or you can partner with people that do. And there's a lot of companies that put on live events. We do too. We also have EE Times University, which are courses online, which are launching in November. And then we also have a website that's launching in November called Tech Online, which is actually going to pull all our webinar, tech papers, videos, and other things, and it's going to from all our different sites, and we're going to pull it together into one site, and it's going to be based by topic, and then engineers can go in there and find training rather than going to one site versus another. And they'll still be on those other sites. It's not like we're taking them away, but it'll be easier for people to find what they're looking for. And then there'll be company directories in there, so engineers can find companies quickly and see kind of what's the latest and greatest. More teardowns. And this is kind of in that inspiration and fun category. Engineers really want to see what's inside. And here's an example. It's Avnet sponsored a Volt teardown for the battery pack, and it was quite well received. And this is one of the last kind of tips, is get ideas from non-competitors and other industries and even B2C. B2C does really good work with new customer programs and also customer engagement. And I hear this over and over again, that in our industry, loyalty programs don't work. And I don't believe that, because I think that what the engineers want is education and training, they want respect, and they want fun. So those are kind of the incentives, and you can define that. But I think, even a webinar with their industry icon is worth way more than a discount or maybe some points. So I think we just have to get creative and think about that. So hopefully what you've learned is your compass is the wants and needs of engineers. You have ideas of how to better align with engineers. You have tips to put into play. And you're supported, your success is ours as well. Does anyone have any questions?
Hi, my name is Eva, and I work for Movia. We do motion processing software, and I have a hard time communicating with our engineers because I feel like every time I talk to them, they don't understand my question and what I'm trying to get out of them. And so every time they're like, what is your marketing bullshit? Why are you coming to me for this?
Yeah.
What do you want? and we have a very hard time communicating, and I have a hard time getting what I need from them. How do I need to talk to them?
You know what's interesting is, this is going to sound really weird, but there's probably sometimes if you're someone on the business side and there's someone on the engineering side and there's maybe problems in the way you're communicating, bring like an intermediary, like someone who kind of gets both worlds. I swear to God, I've done that in certain situations. Like I've brought, like, maybe I didn't quite understand all the technical stuff, and then I'd bring someone that was kind of in the middle, like a production type of person that was kind of both technical and both business. And I think that can help bridge the gap. And I mean, having the common respect, right? Because everyone is really good at what they do, but sometimes they don't get each other's world, you know? So hopefully that can help. I think that's an excellent idea. No, go
Just
for it.
quickly, Joy, how would you do that great answer in a non-personal, like non-one-on-one or
Wait, what?
three? Well, what you just said, like bringing an intermediary, how would you bring an intermediary in a banner ad or on the front of
Oh,
a
I see what you're saying.
website or on a video?
You know, that's why I think interviewing your customer, and in this particular case, an engineer, doing interviews and or doing polls and surveys, that's where that stuff comes into play. That's how you can listen and learn and put your stuff into your creative in your campaigns. The problem is that we get ahead of ourselves and we're already like knowing the deadline of our creative, and then we just, get it out, and it's like, no. You gotta slow down. Everyone has to slow down a little bit. I think we all work in such a fast pace that we need to slow down and think things through a little more.
Yeah, hi. My name is Jerry with EDA
Hi,
Tech
Jerry.
Force. We represent a lot of small EDA companies with emerging technologies, a lot of them out of Europe. In your What Engineers Want, you mentioned time for discovery. What does that mean? Can you expand on that a little bit?
I think they're just like bogged down in the day-to-day and just the business of things, tracking things down amongst each other or tracking things down with their suppliers and distributors, that it was taking away from what it is that they like to do best. So that's where that comes from. So they just want to do the exploration and discovery that they love to do as engineers, which brought them into the profession in the first place.
Howdy, Brian Zonsteck, Emerson Network Power.
Hi.
Hey, so I guess I kind of fall in that intermediary category and a lot more on the engineering side, but I'm newer to the kind of sales and marketing side. So now I see the other side of it. And one piece of, I guess, just advice, I'm glad to see you highlight a couple of things about the focus on, that engineers, you say want to be respected. If I articulated better, I would just say they want to be heard. And I think that's a huge gap that I would find with hundreds of marketing and sales folks I deal with, is they simply don't listen. They want to sell you what they want to sell you, but they're not listening to what you are asking for. And the reason they get frustrated with all the marketing FUD is because, it's that whole feature versus value proposition thing where you're constantly saying, hey, here's a list of things, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And engineers going, hey, that's super, but listen to me, I'm telling you, and engineers are usually very specific. This is exactly what I'm looking for. And so either give it to them or don't. If you don't have that answer,
It's
say
the
so.
sled.
Say, I'm going to go talk to someone and get it. And I tell you, that is far more respectable than trying to just overwhelm you with all the crap that you happen to have brought today, instead of just listening to the specific thing you're looking for and then committing to delivering that and just that. I think that would go a very long way with engineers.
I went to the Dreamforce conference, and I was in the exhibit hall with another, actually a friend of mine. She's a systems consultant, and we would go up to some of these booths, and people would have like a really brief conversation. They'd say, "Do you want to buy yet? Do you want to buy yet?" I mean, it was like totally obnoxious. We were just, for her, she will buy. She will be buying. She advises companies on system softwares. So she was just gathering some quick information. So there's a time and a place for that, and the engineers want to be heard and listened to, number one, and respected.
Do you see any of the recommendations that you've outlined here as part of your playbook having some regional differences from the Americas and EMEA versus Asia Pac?
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a great question, and I didn't, New World Marketing, it's a global economy, and I didn't really get into specifics for specific regions. What's funny is that there's so much we can learn from the different regions, and sometimes certain regions think they're behind, and then certain regions think they're ahead, but I've never really found that to be the case. Like Europe might think they're behind on this, or we think we're ahead of Europe, but it's not true. They're good at certain things, and we're good at certain things. And so we need to collaborate. So in terms of reaching engineers in different areas, I think I'd have to look into that and ask some of my colleagues about that. But I do know that the mind of the engineer, I think, is a global study, so maybe there's something in there that we could pull.
Roger Grace Associates. Having come from the analog design point and being a marketing person, I hear somewhat of a paradox with your comment about your friend and you going to a conference and having somebody say, do you want to buy it? Do you want to buy it? And my question is, aren't most of the people that are in these booths engineers and converted into applications engineers, converted into marketing people? So if they want to be heard, want to be respected, how come they're in the Do You Want to Buy program?
I think we hit a lot of salespeople, to be honest, the day that we were there. But I think that is true. I mean, I think at a lot of these booths there were both, but we did get hit up by a lot of salespeople, and they're selling way too early when people are just gathering information or just trying to get a sense of the systems and their differences.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Steve from Xilinx. I wanted to ask you about the surveys and what you found to be the most successful in getting people to click on those, right? So you had the guys in the panel earlier on that were saying like, oh, these spam emails, like I don't want to get those, right? So how do you entice them to answer a survey and get some meaningful data? Is it giving away an iPad or something like that?
Yeah.
Is it articles, or how do you drive more people to answer your surveys? I suppose is the question.
I think you have to test things and all. I mean, what a great answer. You need to test that. No. But I think what a lot of these engineers want is they want information. So maybe you're trying to gather information for one thing, but maybe you have intelligence that they may need, or they may see as an incentive. Because I'm noticing, when we're interacting with some of our advertising clients, they love research that they can get their hands on about the industry. So we're providing them with something that's helpful as opposed to a Starbucks card or, an iPhone, which people like. The other thing that I think is interesting is they want to know that someone actually won this stuff, and it's not that difficult to post that somewhere. And no one ever does that. And it's a great thing to do, because then people think it's real. So I think, free training. We went to Xilinx and saw their visitor center. The chance to go see that visitor center for an engineer might be a really cool thing to win. I mean, as an incentive to fill out a survey. And that might not be too expensive, or to see a webinar or whatever. It doesn't always have to be product. It might be harder to implement, but it's worth it. Makes more sense, it's relevant.
Surveys is actually one of the things where we generally do get good engagement. And the key is if the survey is asked in a way that makes it clear that you really want their opinion. Engineers love giving their opinion,
Right.
especially if they believe you're really listening and you really care. So we've done surveys, random surveys on the website. I don't know if email's the best. We've done surveys through third parties. We generally get pretty good engagement on those.
The only things I don't like are, I think this is probably universal. If you're going to a company website and they already do like an entrance survey, not like an exit survey where you've kind of already found what you need, and then you see like a pop-up that says, do you mind taking our study, blah, blah, blah. It's the ones that are the entrance surveys, those are really annoying. I don't think anyone should do those, because especially with engineers, they're there to find information. They don't want to be kind of distracted. So I would wait.
Adding to the Steve's point, Joy, most of the times when I register on any forum or any technical website, the questionnaires that I get that I need to answer before I can get the information that I want, I find most of that questions irrelevant to me as an engineer.
Oh, like within a specific forum category.
Yep. So they basically asked me if what kind of industry I'm into, what kind of, how many numbers of employees are there in the company, for which, I mean, as a student or as an engineer, I may not know or I may not want to disclose all those information.
Right.
So how do you make that survey more answerable to the people?
Right, right. Well, that's a great question. I don't think surveys should really be more than 15 questions, and I've seen some really long ones. I'm not talking about a research study where there's a ton of questions. I'm talking about a survey that a company's doing. And a lot of times they want to gather demographic information like you're talking about, company size, what your particular profession is, yada, yada, yada. A lot of times the companies already have that information. And they're not, even if they gather it from you, from this survey, they're not updating their systems. So I think that needs to be matched. That's kind of being sloppy. There's companies that can help you do that. And those are wasted questions. So if the company already has the information, don't ask it again. But you're right, and I think that maybe a better practice would be trying to streamline those a little bit more, and really ask what's pertinent. Because I think people are kind of doing things the same way they've been doing them for a while. So I would challenge all those questions that we're asking. And I'm doing them too. So.